Hello, welcome to Nezo's Bad Shop. I'm your host, Nezo, and you are looking at two vehicles of the same brand. It is MST, and particularly these cars are the MST 2.5, this one, and the 2.0, this one. So RMX 2.0, RMX 2.5, both by MST, and as you can see have very nice bodies that they are included with. These are MST's own branded bodies, and they actually are pretty well detailed. These ones being wide body and have the wide body already molded to the body. Looks very good. It's a little warm today, so you may hear a little fan noise, a little fan over there, a little fan over there, and a little fan up there. Abnormally warm on October 4th. It's like, where is it? The computer says 26 degrees, so it's hot. So just if you're hearing the fan noise. But yes, essentially the 2.5 is like a small update to the 2.0 because there's a lot of similarities and we're going to go through them. As you can see, the radios are pretty much the same, right? So no change there. This one just has a white piece of tape to identify the white car from other filming in the past. So having said that, when I got these out of the box, I decided to drill body post holes for the body posts. So that was my choice. You don't have to, but this is the quicker way to get on track. You can totally use magnets if you want, but I decided to just see how fast we could get them going. And it was roughly about 15 minutes from opening the box to drilling the holes and doing light prep, charge the battery, put it in and go. And put batteries in the radio. AA's in this case, there they are, and they are not included. So with these cars, when you purchase them, you get car, radio, electronics, wheels, tires, and the body. And all you have to provide is batteries, so AA for the remote and a battery pack for the car. Now, having said all that, we're going to take off the bodies and we're going to examine underneath the vehicles and we're going to see what's what. Now, for the most part, as I said, the radios are the same, so we're going to move those out of the way because they are no longer relevant in terms of our comparison here. Now, you may have also noticed from previous videos I have a display case here now, and the service area is a little more tarted up. We'll do that in another video. But for now, we're going to compare these two chassis, and as you can see, so when you put them side by side, they pretty much are very similar, same wheelbase. The wheels themselves that are included on each car is a little bit different to fit the body. Some I've seen are 3mm offset, some are 5, some are 6. Most of them will have a 1mm spacer, so for whatever the wheel is, you get like a +1. So this is, I think, this one is like a 5mm, or maybe 6 with the +1 up front. This one was, I think, a 3, and it gave a +1, so it's 4 offset total. They do that to fit the bodies and stuff, but the cars do still drift fine with the factory steering lock available, which is quite a lot actually, with the factory stopper built into the knuckle. You can just see it there. And at least one cool thing is they do give you scale brake disc hub for the wheel and brake caliper, so it does look scale. Gives it a nice effect when it's driving along. So yeah, so the chassis are pretty similar. There are some differences which we will note, but overall they are pretty much the same in terms of a lot of the stuff on the chassis. Wasn't sure where I was going to go with that sentence, but if I flip them over, for example, this is what I mean about being a lot of the big same. The chassis plates themselves are the same. They're identical. There's no differences on the chassis plates. So that's what I mean by it. They look very the same off the bat. But when we dive a little deeper here, we can see one main difference up front is on this one with the white body, they've given us a big foam bumper. On this car with the Beamer, there's no front bumper, and mainly that's to fit the body, but a lot of cars nowadays are getting rid of the front bumper on the drift chassis, so starting to become a new trend. Yes, so having said that, as we look at the front end of both cars, they're pretty similar. There's subtle differences in terms of where the servo is located and how the front steering bell crank is assembled. So on the 2.0, the servo is way up front, so this bell crank, this is the configuration for the servo being up close. The link is right here in the middle of the chassis, okay? Now on the 2.5, the bell crank system is set up differently because the servo is back here, so it's a much longer plastic adjustable turnbuckle that goes sideways on the car instead of across the car. So slightly different geometry in the front, but it results in pretty much the same steering lock overall, which is good. But the 2.5, having the servo moved a little bit back gives it a little bit more rear bias, which results in a little bit more rear end performance, be it grip, side grip, or just overall bite, whatever you want to call it. But it does give the rear end a bit more jam, which is nice. Yeah, so we just compared the front end there a little bit, but before we get into the rear end of the car, which there are big changes, we're gonna look down the sides of these cars here, because we're gonna look at the overall electronics layout. So like I was just saying with the servo, the RMX 2.0 has the servo way up front, and most of the rest of the electronics are located in the middle of the car, including the gyro. Batteries right here, motor being mid-rear, okay? On the rear part of the car, in front, it's towards the rear, middle rear, but in front of the front axle. Okay, just pointing that out. Now the electronics on the 2.0, like I said, centered in the middle, so it's a very mid-bias type car. On the 2.5, they opted to move the servo back, so it's installed in the middle but facing sideways, I should say, because the other one is also in the middle. And then they took the rest of the electronics and moved them around. The gyro is in the same position, and this 2.0 being the last version, whatever, of the 2.0, has the MGX gyro equipped. Previous models had the LSD and LSX gyros by MST installed, but the MGX works pretty good for what it is, and I'm happy with it. And so they kept it, and it's now the default gyro on the RMX 2.5. So that's in the same position. That hasn't changed. But they've moved the receiver up high, puts a little bit of weight up high. The motor is in the same place, okay? But the biggest change is they've moved the speed controller to the rear, behind the rear axle. So on the 2.0, it's in the middle, in front of the battery. On the 2.5, they've moved it to the bum. And that does result in a big weight bias change and shift, and but it also results in more traction to the rear and keeping the rear more planted on average around a lap versus the 2.0, which has all the weight in the mid of the car. Both of these cars, you can relocate the motor to the high position if you like. Some people like that when they're learning it. It gives a bit more of a pendulum style weight shift effect, and some people find that is a little bit easier to feel and learn when they're trying to understand the drift and think with going sideways, you know, when straight is an option. That's the Strictly logo, or yeah, no, not the logo, the what you call it, the saying thing. Yes, brain doesn't work. Anyways, moving on. So having the electronics shifted around in the ESC out of the rear side is very beneficial, and the 2.5 drove really good out of the box, even better than the 2.0, which is saying quite a bit. And the other main change they did with the electronics, even though you can't see it right now, is the battery positioning. The actual position on the chassis is the same, however, it's more of the size of the battery. So the 2.0, they set the battery tray up in for the standard large, or long battery I should say, not the large, the long battery, 2-cell LiPo, or nickel metal, whatever you want to run. I suggest LiPo for longevity and tons of power until it cuts off. But on the 2.5, they have moved the battery mounts inward to specify that they would like you to run a shorty style battery. And this is where I sort of mentioned the battery being moved. Even though location on the chassis hasn't moved, we're moving the weight more inward by using a shorty battery, which does result in a little bit more better performance, because having the weight hang over the sides of the chassis, even though it's more weight, can help keep the car planted. When it moves side to side, it's more weight to actually move side to side, and because it's so low and hanging off the side of the chassis, it doesn't move very much. So this is good, but this is better. So yes, it's way more optimal on the 2.5 to have it in this config. Now you can totally take your 2.0 and move these battery mounts inward, but what I found when I did that on another car is when you go to move this inward, this battery mount needs to go underneath the ESC right there where that hole is. And if I flip the car over, there's the hole, but it's being blocked by the ESC. So that was a bit of an annoyance. And yes, you can move some electronics around, like move the receiver around and relocate the switch and, you know, move the ESC over a bit. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. But when I moved the ESC over and pushed it to this side of the car, to the right side of the car, it blocked the other hole. So that then, that did not work out. So I had a bit of a rethink, and after seeing what was at the time the prototype design for the 2.5 and where they were locating things, I thought, all right, fine, we're going to take this ESC and locate it either up top or on the back. So I believe on the other car I moved the gyro down, put the ESC up high, moved the battery inward, and that did result in a little bit more performance, as I had a bit more weight located up high for a bit of that pendulum weight shift style effect with having some weight up at the top of the chassis. And that worked out, and that made that 2.0 drive a little better. So, I mean, you know, that was kind of nice, but the amount of effort to just put a smaller battery in on a 2.0 was not excessive, but it was slightly annoying having to relocate things when it should have been straight easy. Now on this car, it's going to be easy to move them out because nothing is interfering them, and they've already relocated the electronics on the 2.5, so they were able to move in for a shorty battery on the 2.5, which I like. It's my preferred anyway. I like drift cars with shorty batteries. It's easier to manipulate and move the weight around on a shorty battery than on a longer standard battery. So that was a nice touch. That was a nice thing that they did in terms of the electronics placement, but it does result in very, very good performance on the 2.5. Yeah, so now that we've done the sort of down the line comparison here, looking down the car, I'm going to turn my attention to the rear of the car now, rear chassis focus here. Yes, so I'm trying to keep up in my own head. If you're still with me, or what, we're 12 minutes in on this comparison, awesome. Now, in the rear end here, they changed some significant bits that you can't see. And by that, I mean the transmission. On the 2.0, I believe this car has the older style transmission in it, which visually you can't really see too much of a difference. There's subtle differences here in the casing, like right there versus there. And other than that, you really can't see it on the outside. But on the inside, this car has bevel gears in the transmission, which at first weren't an issue, but people started blowing them up just under heavy use and boosting, really. So the little bevels in there, they didn't really stand up to a lot of power, let's say, being thrown through it, or heavy driving usage, so the gears started to let go on that. So MST had a rethink, and they used straight cut gears, and that's what's in the 2.5 transmission. So the final drive ratios were slightly altered, but really not that much. And performance-wise, the 2.5 does feel a little better under throttling than the 2.0, but it's by a subtle margin, but I did notice it. And that's not just because the ESC has been moved to the rear, which also you are noticing here as well. There's an ESC back here, and there is not one back here. So the transmission was the major change. They kept the motor in the same place. In the rear, for the actual suspension locations, they've kept the same positions up high, kept the same positions down low. The spacing and the toe setting is still the same. Fixed links all around, as you can see, which I forgot to point out in the front end, but both cars feature fixed turnbuckle links, so you don't have to really worry about them, just go and drive first. But the turnbuckle set is not that expensive, and when you do that, you'll be able to adjust toe and camber and get some more performance out of the car for a small upgrade, which is pretty good. We have quite a lot of RMX 2.0s and 2.5s running around here. We also use them in our rental fleet, and the rentals stay on the fixed links, as those are designed to introduce people to the hobby and train people. But other people who started drifting with the RMX 2.0 or 2.5 felt like they were ready to start adjusting things. So we got some of the MST turnbuckle adjuster sets in, and those sold out within like 1 or 2 drift sessions, which I was surprised about. But a lot of people installed them right away, and then yeah, they were very happy gaining a good amount of performance with such a low priced upgrade with just turnbuckles. So that worked out pretty good. And yeah, so you see the fixed links there. They're up in the front on the steering as well. So that's where those are. Yeah, so as I was saying, in the rear, nothing else has really changed. They shortened the diff cup holder piece there on the 2.5. It's a little slimmer than it is on the 2.0. The shocks are the same. I believe they kept the same springs. I don't believe they're different. I think they're the same. Oh no, they did change the spring. No, did they? Hold on, just trying to look here. That's 2 colors. Is this 2 colors? Yes, it is. Okay, so the springs are the same. They didn't change the springs. And like I said, the positionings of the suspension is the same. Plastic shock's always going to get a little leaky. That's as per tradition. So that is what it is. I mean, you can rebuild them, green slime them, reseal them, whatever. They're still going to leak a little bit just because of the nature that they are plastic. But they're good for the starting. And look at these cars. These cars have been sitting for some time, and I still have some decent damping left, which is not bad. So, I mean, I can't complain there. Yeah, just trying to think if I've missed anything at this point. The body posts are in these positions from the factory because the 2.0s for the longest time they were shipping them with Tamiya base bodies, so this is Tamiya post geometry right here. But after they moved to their own brand of body, they just kind of stuck with it, and they keep shipping them in this position, so whatever, but you can totally move them out. And even on this body here, there's dimples here for the wide hole spec if you really want to do that. Same with this body as well. There's the Tamiya holes, and there's a dimple right there for the wide spec. There's a dimple. Ooh. Charger's making noise because the battery is charged. Probably gonna go drifting soon anyway, but until then, a few other things I can point out about these vehicles and things you should know about them. Stuff I've learned living with them for a little bit and using them as rentals and stuff. Let's see, let's flip them back. The right side here. Now, the nice thing I really enjoyed was the ESCs coming with Dean's connectors. That was nice to see instead of the old plastic white Molex Tamiya style really heavy resistance plugs. Dean's are low resistance, so that's nice. Nice to see that they did that, because there's still other kits and electronic speed controls that ship that Tamiya Molex connector, and it needs to be a thing of the past and not be put on new cars in the future. Let's see, what else can I say about these things? Well, the main summary is the 2.0, it was good. It was great. I enjoyed it. It worked very well, even through all the updates they did. I've owned 3 or 4 of the 2.0s, and they kept improving it along the way with changing up the gyro and making little improvements here and there. But the 2.5 is even better. It's my choice for RTR right now, in terms of if we had to lay out all the RTRs available, which there aren't even that many for drifting, but in my opinion, the RMX 2.5 is number 1 on that list. It's the best out-of-box RTR driving vehicle with the equipment available on it. My second choice would be the 2.0 because it is as good as the 2.5, but the 2.5 has slightly better revisions, which make it a little bit better. And then it would probably be the Yokomo YD2Z RTR offering, and then probably the Red Cat RTR offering in terms of what's what, and from top to bottom there, as I've driven all of them. So maybe one day I'll throw them all in a shootout, we'll see. But I mean, yeah, in terms of bang for buck, getting into the hobby sooner than later and being budget conscious, I'm in Canada here near Toronto, and these cars, Canadian, are roughly about $550 to $600 depending on body or availability. Usually I tell people about $600 is what you're going to spend, and like I was saying at the beginning of the video, that gives you a whole running car with wheels, tires, full electronic gear, radio system, and a painted body. And you add batteries and do a little bit of prep, and 15 minutes after you crack the seal, you can be on the track driving around. And you can actually see me do that in my unboxing video of the 2.5, which I filmed earlier this year. I should put a link in the description for that if you want to see that. And I literally cut the seal, talk about it, we prep it, and I throw it straight on track. And what's even more wild is I didn't have a driver with me to film that day, so I just by myself put the car on track, did a little yeehaw one-hand driving, and actually the car drove so well I was having fun just driving it with one hand. But it really illustrated to me how good the car handles out of the box performance-wise, because I was able to drive it, I'd say, almost effortlessly with one hand. And me being an experienced driver, yes, I mean, yeah, experienced guys can do the one-handed stuff, but I actually barely struggled driving it. I was having fun. I had a smile on my face doing it with one hand, so I thought that was pretty neat. And I was able to do it with the 2.0 as well when I did that, but the 2.0 just drove smoother. It was just a bit more smoother, a little bit more friendlier, and yeah, it's my top pick right now. Just trying to think here what else I may need to tell you guys about it. Upgrades, well, if you're going to upgrade the chassis first, I would say definitely the turnbuckle links. Replace the fixed links with adjustable turnbuckles. That should be a nice little inexpensive upgrade. The next major thing, or the next thing I would look at personally, if you're going to upgrade the chassis on either of these cars, aside from the fixed links, the second thing would be shocks, aluminum bodied oil filled shocks. These are oil filled and they're good for plastic. But if you want smoother performance, more tunability, aluminum oil filled shocks is the way to go. And you have tons of choice. You can go with MST's own TR. They have, I think, 56, 60, and they have 4, I think, maybe 54, 56, and 60 shock lengths of their aluminum dampers, oil-filled dampers. Or you could move to Axon or Overdose or whatever. There's many different shock brands out there. Topline, Yokomo, heck, whatever, mix and match. But MST does make their own brand shocks for this car. And they do work pretty well. I've tried them as well. So I can recommend them. But like lately, as I'm gonna say it right now, lately MST parts have been somewhat hard to come by, and we in the world don't know why. And whenever stuff actually does come in, it sells out really fast because nobody knows when it'll actually show up again. And this is words echoed from our distributor as well, Elite Drift Shop, where the distributor waits forever for the orders, and whenever it comes in, it sells out, but it does take forever to get in. So I'm just putting that out there because that's been a thing for me, myself, and even other people looking for other bits and bytes. So I mean, when I got the turnbuckles in, like I say, I got 3 sets of them in, and they sold out within 2 drift sessions. People saw them on the wall and were like, "That's it, scoop." So getting MST parts and stuff has been a bit of an issue, and even online recently with the RMX 2.5, people have been looking to purchase it at their local shop. Some don't have, some have many, and then mostly other people are going online to look for stock, and they can't find it, or they can't find the one they want in stock, or the body included, the ones in stock. So it's been a bit of a mixed sort of game lately in 2022 and 2023 with MST availability, both for these whole 2.5 RTRs and parts for them. So this is sort of a bit of a call out. Get it together, because people want the stuff, because it works pretty good. But yeah, the biggest problem is if they do get a car, getting replacement parts has been a bit of a problem. And we saw this year with the MRX GT, where it was discontinued a little hastily, and part support literally stopped for like a whole 2 weeks to a month, where literally nobody could order parts for their MRX GT and for a few other parts. And my colleague today, who's here early with me, is shaking his hand like this, the full Italione. And yeah, rightly so, because a lot of people have been pretty upset about not being able to get parts for their car, or like I was saying with the MRX GT, not being able to get parts whatsoever, even contacting MST direct. That was pretty embarrassing. And even for me, I stopped driving the car, and it's actually for sale now because I kind of gave up on it. And then they also decided that they would release an update to that car, which is called the MRX GT 1.5. So part of me doesn't know what the heck they're doing, because they're kind of just willy-nilly throwing stuff out there. But when they get it right, they get it really right. The RMX 2.5 RTR is really good. But parts support and availability has been very 50-50. So a lot of people that end up with an RMX 2.5 RTR to get into the hobby, to start, they love it, they want to upgrade it, they find they can't get parts, they then go to another brand. That's usually what happens. So if anyone from MST is listening, this is what's happening out in the field. Your products are very good, they work very great, but getting part support is very difficult and is taking way too long, and people are moving to other brand and products. So yeah, if you want to keep up the goodness, keep the part support flowing, because parts just fly right out of the gate as soon as they come in, and then once they're gone, we don't know when they're coming back. And that's a bit tragic, because the equipment does work pretty good. Now, having said all of that, parts upgrades are saying yes, the turnbuckles, and then do some shocks, and then really after that it's up to you if you want to bling it out, do some other stuff like bling the arms out, get some better knuckles, you know, aluminum colors, whatever. MST does offer some color options. Their default is red, I know that, but they do offer some color options. But like I said, finding your colored option, pretty hard. Almost impossible, some people have reported to me. Other people what I've read is they've made an order, a pre-order or whatever it is, and then they wait forever for the item to get delivered to them, and that's just unacceptable in today's world. Especially when other stores or whatever can ship a lot quicker if they actually have the stock. But then they say the same thing: getting stock is a lot difficult. Now, let me know in the comments what you guys have experienced with MST part support lately. I'd say in 2022 and 2023, because it really started falling off last year, and then a lot of people are complaining and noticing. So let me know what you think. I myself have noticed this a lot, and I can't even get stuff in for some people that want it because we can't find it, or our distributor can't get it, or doesn't have it in hand, or placed the order and has been waiting 2 or 3 months for it. So something like that. But aside from all that, the other things they can go through is the electronics. Now, the ESC and motor in these cars, both of these, do not have boost capability. Okay, so if you want boosting, you're going to have to change both the ESC and the motor, because these are sensorless. They're brushless, which is good, but they're sensorless, so they're not super duper precise. But the amount of power that's in here is a good amount of power. It's enough power to get you sideways. And honestly, if you can't drift with the amount of power that's in these cars, then you gotta do some more teaching, or boost won't help you, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. But yes, if you want to put boost in these cars, you totally can do it, but you have to change the ESC and the motor devices so that you can do that. And if you do that, you don't have to change the front end of the car. You can just change those items for boost and ESC. First thing I would change, if I were to be a bit budget conscious and I wanted to make an electronic change but wasn't sure what to do, I would change the radio system first. And it's not a knock on the radio system to say it's bad or anything like that, but when you change the radio system, you'll get a little bit more precision, which will result in better control. Crucially, you'll end up with a radio, most likely, that has a screen on it. And when you have a digital screen, you'll be able to see all the inputs you're putting in. You'll be able to see a number, like say for your gyro, you'll be able to then adjust your gyro more easily on the 3rd or 4th channel of a better radio. And you'll be able to see a number for a percentage to be able to know that, okay, today I'm going to run 58% gyro, or I'm going to run 64. On this, all you can do is push buttons and guess and hope that you've got it set just right. But even if you don't use the buttons on there to adjust by 3rd channel, which you can do, but you're blind, you'll use a pot adjuster here on the gyro. So I would say upgrade the radio so you have better overall control. You can actually fine-tune the electronics a little better, and yeah, just overall precision control and have a bit better feel. And most higher-end radios have adjustable trigger and wheel springs, so you can feel the difference, like in terms of you can adjust it and make your wheel heavier or lighter, or trigger lighter or heavier. That's a nice touch too. So radio would probably be my first choice, and then servo. The servos in these cars, they're okay, they get the job done, but what I've noticed with even these cars and our rentals, after a short amount of driving, they do get pretty warm because they're trying to keep up to the gyro. So they will get the job done, but every now and then I do see a little bit of servo wobble and hunting, as you see a bit of this as you're on drift. You see a little bit of this action, and that's just the servo trying to keep up to the gyro's inputs of what the gyro wants the servo to do. So servo would be probably less costly than a radio, but if you did the radio first, you'll have a bit better overall control right away. If you do the servo first, you'll get rid of a bit of that wobble and hunting, and you'll have a bit more faster steering, which is better. You'll want a faster servo. Then you'll be able to change direction a bit more quicker, which will result in a bit more control and performance. But in terms of an overall, a radio will give you a bit more on the steering and a bit more on the throttle. So that's why I would recommend a radio first over a servo. But if your budget only allows a servo first, go with the servo first. That's okay. If you really feel like throwing a lot of money at the problem and replacing all the electronics, including the radio system, by all means, go for it. If your budget allows for it, replace the servo, the gyro, the radio system, and the ESC motor. Do it all at once. As we like to say here, buy once, cry once. But yeah, you can totally just replace all the electronics straight up out of the gate, and have your car still as a pre-built, ready-to-go unit. And then just, yeah, swap the electronics to give yourself boost, to give yourself more faster steering, more gyro control and performance, because you can change out the gyro to give yourself a gyro that has multi-mode. So like the there's gyros out there that typically use a green or a red mode, and a green mode is a very smooth, very controlled, very nice with it, let's say. So you can whip the car as hard as you want and the gyro will still give you a smooth flow through a corner. Or you can go to the red mode, which is more aggressive, which is more sensitive. So you do a very little input on the radio, and the car darts in, whips in, is more aggressive. But you really have to be on the control. So it's more of a driver's mode, I'd say, more of, not even in advance, just more when you get used to the car and then you're ready for your car to do more quick maneuvering and stuff like that. Then I would say change into a red mode or a more aggressive mode, more sensitive mode. Yeah, and other than that, overall, you know, they're pretty great out of the box. Like I say, the RMX 2.0 is very good, but the 2.5 is a bit better. Yeah, there's not really too much else I can think of at the moment. If I've missed anything, let me know in the comments. I'll try and answer you if I've missed anything on either of these cars. There was one thing I'm trying to think of, but I don't think it's that important since it's not coming to mind. But yeah, either way, you'd be happy with either of these cars, but the 2.0 is slowly being discontinued and phased out since the 2.5 is better, in my opinion. But you can't go wrong with either of them, really. You can pretty much, let's say convert, but you can get the bits to set this car into a 2.5 spec. You can change the transmission, get the mounts to move the receiver and the speed control up, and that will give you a bit more control stuff on your 2.0. You can change to carbon deck and all that other stuff, and yeah, there's sky's the limit that way on options and parts. But yeah, other than those things, what else would you might want to watch out for? The servo horn here, I believe the gear type on this servo is plastic. It's not a metal outdrive gear, so you might want to watch out for the servo horn stripping the outdrive gear on the servo. The wheels and tires, depending on what surface you run them on, may get chewed up pretty quickly. If they're on sort of a soft asphalt on the outside, they may get chewed up. These tires, I think, are designed for more of tile, carpet, and or polished concrete, so they kind of work on multiple surfaces. These are the MST green dot tires they've spec'd on both cars, actually. Yeah, green dots on both. And I've ran both these cars here on the polished concrete, and the green dots do work all right on the polished concrete, so I've left them on. Oh, I remember the main thing I wanted to say, which I probably should have said off the hop at the beginning of the video. Both of these vehicles are built by the factory, as you see in the RTR in the box, but aside from them being assembled at the factory, they are factory tested and approved. So that means before they're put into the box, somebody actually has turned them on, verified the settings, verified the speed control, the gyro, and actually put it onto a track and driven it around a couple laps to verify that yes, the car is ready to drive, which is a very nice thing, because all the other RTR offerings on the market currently, they don't do that. The Yokomo one, no, it's just assembled and put in the box. The Red Cat, it's just assembled and put in the box. So that's one major selling point, is these cars are factory tested, and they even put it, if I come way over here onto the box right there, this car was practice driven test by the factory. So that's why, and it's just noting that the tires do have a bit of marks on them, but that is a thing. And that's the 2.5 box. Here's the 2.0 box. Same little message. So that's so you know that they have been factory verified, and you can trust that you can put a battery in them and put them on the track and then start enjoying rear wheel drift right away. So having covered all those things, I think that's it. Let me know in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. And yes, let me know if you've got one, a 2.0, a 2.5. Let me know what you've done to it, if you've done nothing to it, what's held up, what failed soon, what failed later, what you felt maybe was best first upgrade for you. Let me know what body you got, because I've had an AMG Merc, I've had an R34 GTR, I've had the FRS, I think this one is. What do they call this one? The 86RB. So yeah, Toyota 86 FRS, and I have Beamer E30, which a couple people have already said, hey, when you wanna let go of this, let me know, brother. And I'm like, well, I really like this Beamer. I don't have many Beamers, so we'll have to see what happens with the Beamer. But for now, the Beamer lives on this MST, and Yes. Oh, one other thing, I guess, right before I sign off. My colleague and I, my colleague Seb over here, we were playing around with the bodies because I was illustrating that you can drop both bodies onto each chassis based on the body post geometry. So this is the body that was on the 2.0, right? So if I take the body on the 2.0, because the geometry of the posts are the same, bam, drops right on. Adjust your pins for the ride height. Well, there you go. Look at that. That's a nice thing. So I like when body post geometry is identical and things work out. So then I took the body that came with the 2.5 and I attempted to put it on the 2.0 car and struggled a little bit. And I was trying to figure out why. Well, one, the body is, it's a little bit molded inward, so it's hitting on the battery, the long battery tray on both sides. And once I fixed that, the body dropped on and it fits, but it looked a little weird, especially in the front, and it was hitting. And I thought, why is that? Because this is pretty much the chassis layout and the body posts are largely overly the same. But when we flipped the car over, we realized what had happened. It was the foam bumper pushing the front of the body outward, which is putting the wheel offset. So if I remove that bumper, we'll be good, we'll be fine. But that's one nice thing. So that's why I drilled the rear holes as such on this body, so that it could mimic the body post geometry, which is really handy. So if you and a buddy have one and you want to swap bodies and mess with each other's heads, then yeah, for sure, this is totally something you can do, and it would be pretty funny. And if you do, make sure you take a video or a picture and then tell me about it. But anyways, yes, that's the MST, the RMX, the 2.0 and the 2.5, a comparison for you. Many people have asked me what the differences are and which one they should go for. At this point, honestly, whichever one you can find in stock, to be honest, because like I said, MST part supply, I don't know why, is taking forever here and there, and stuff is somewhat hard to get or find. So if you find it, grab it, pretty much. That's the way of the MST right now. But if you have choice of both of them in front of you, the 2.0 and the 2.5, and you don't really care which body you get, I would say go for the 2.5, because it is that little bit better. But if you can't get one, and you're really hard up and you really want to get in, and all you can find is a 2.0, it's still good, it's still decent, and you can change a few bits and make it pretty close to the 2.5 anyway. So, you know, all is not lost if you can't get a 2.5, but everyone that's told me that they waited for their 2.5, they were all very happy with it. People that commented on my previous YouTube videos, people that pre-ordered and waited, once they finally got it, they were very happy with it. So that is a nice thing that I can report, is that owners of it are really enjoying it and they're having fun with it, and some are thinking of upgrades, some are trying to figure out if they want another car, if they want to change brand or whatever. But the bottom line is they work, and they work good. Given choice, now it's the 2.5, but if you can't find one or hard to find one, the 2.0 will do just as good. So yeah, I know I said like, comment, subscribe several minutes ago, but again, please let me know your thoughts and everything, and how everything's going, and maybe I'll do a big shootout with all these RTRs at some point. But other than that, I may do some videos on upgrading some bits of them and noting the performance, but other than that, I don't really have anything planned for these RTRs. This one is actually not mine anymore. It's about to become a rental car, because we have another one in the fleet which is getting a little tired, but it still works. Reverse stopped working, you know, the shocks are a little tired, it's a bit dirty, it needs a bit of a cleanup. But this is going to be added to our fleet because we are getting more and more rentals and more people out and into the hobby, which is very good. So we need to expand our rental fleet. This is 2.5 though, this is still mine. I'm going to keep this one, drive it around, enjoy it, love it, send it outside, maybe send it down the Toge runway down at the Elite Drift Shop near their bridge. They got a crazy walkway downhill thing. You'll see videos of it later. Maybe I'll send this out there because, you know, plastic fantastic, and I don't have to worry about scuffing up me carbon. So yes, thank you for watching. If you've watched all the way through, you're 40 minutes deep, congratulations. Thank you so much for watching the whole thing, and yes, see you soon. Like, comment, subscribe. Bye.